The Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the most iconic and legendary franchises in the history of professional American sports. One of the most winning teams in post-merger modern NFL history. At least they were, prior to the 2007 NFL season, when the Rooney family set out to hire their third head coach since 1969. And despite repeated and continued failures throughout the vast majority of his fraudulent tenure, the Steelers have continued to remain by Mike Tomlin's side and flush their organization down the toilet. And this is, of course, amid the preposterous and unprecedented protection and coddling afforded to Tomlin by the fake news sports media.
I'm offended by this conversation, and I'm gonna tell America why. Let me tell y'all something. All of y'all out there that's calling for Mike Tomlin, y'all could kiss off.
Spinning their narratives and crafting their tales of the genius Hall of Fame coach to be. And now, in the midst of his most recent playoff failure, the collective football world holds its breath while he decides his future. As if anyone else, with his lack of production and results when it matters most, would ever be afforded such a courtesy.
I'm not going to act like I know what the hell I'm going to do tomorrow.
Oh, yes, of course, though. He has never had a losing season, except the part of the season that matters most, where in his playoff career, now Mike Tomlin is just 8-10, under 500 when it really matters.
Oh, what a loser!
And as Tomlin himself would tell you, the standard is the standard.
The standard is the standard. That's our motto, that's our creed, that's our approach.
But the standard in Pittsburgh was winning, particularly Super Bowls, that is. At least it was, until his loser ass got to town in 2007. As prior to the 2007 season, when Mike Tomlin was introduced as the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, the Steelers were one of the golden standards of modern NFL history. On June 8, 1966, the AFL and NFL merged to produce the modern Super Bowl era as we know it. And from 1967 to 2007, when Mike Tomlin was hired, the Steelers were second all-time in wins behind only the Dallas Cowboys, both in the regular season and the playoffs. And at that time, they were tied with Dallas and San Francisco with 5 Super Bowls apiece, the most in the history of the Super Bowl era. But then on January 22nd of 2007, Mike Tomlin was hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And at just 34 years of age at the time, he had no head coaching experience at any level and only 1 year as a defensive coordinator at any level. While Tomlin did experience some immediate success, and I do mean immediate, the actual level of credit he should receive for this success is questionable at best. As Tomlin inherited a Steelers team that was plush with talent, both players and coaches, which was just 1 year removed from winning the Super Bowl in 2005 at the time of his hire. On the defensive side of the ball was legendary defensive coordinator and Pro Football Hall of Famer Dick LeBeau, with an assortment of perennial All-Pro and Pro Bowl talent, which included 5-time Pro Bowler Casey Hampton, 2-time Pro Bowler James Farrior, 5-time Pro Bowler James Harrison, and 8-time Pro Bowler Troy Polamalu. On the other side of the ball was Bruce Arians as the offensive coordinator, who of course would go on to win a Super Bowl as a head coach years later. And of course an ascending Ben Roethlisberger coming off of the aforementioned Super Bowl win 2 years earlier. And Tomlin leveraged all of that talent early on in his Steelers tenure, making the playoffs in his first year and then winning the Super Bowl in just his second season at the age of 36. Ultimately, Tomlin would make the playoffs in 3 of his first 4 seasons on the job with Pittsburgh, winning 1 Super Bowl and posting a playoff record of 5-2 during the stretch. Alas, over the years, Bill Cowher's talent and Bill Cowher's coaching staff would eventually move on, and in Tomlin's last 13 seasons, the Steelers are now just 3-8 in the playoffs.
Playoffs?
That is 3 total wins in the postseason in 13 years.
You think my message gonna change? My message ain't gonna change.
And he has missed the playoffs altogether in 5 years over that 13-year span.
No excuses, no explanations.
But oh sure, he's never had a losing record. What he also has never done in the last 7 years and counting now is win a single playoff game.
It's a fine line between, drinking wine and squashing grapes.
And in 2 of his last 4 playoff losses, the defensive genius has given up 45 and 48 points at home to teams quarterbacked by Baker Mayfield and Blake Bortles. And yet, we are waiting on him to decide what he wants to do about his future.
Well, bye.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are an absolutely gutless franchise.
It's garbage!
Who have been passed by a plethora of other NFL organizations. As the Steelers' 3 playoff wins since 2011 are behind 20 other NFL franchises.
What the hell's going on out here?
The golden standard of the NFL during that time, the New England Patriots, won 18 playoff games since 2011, while the Chiefs and Packers have won 13 over that time, and the Niners as well as the Ravens in Pittsburgh's own division have 11 wins during that span. Oh, and Lamar Jackson, by the way, has one of those 11 playoff wins. But of course, all of those teams have had drastically more talent than the Steelers over that span of time.
No, they didn't.
Not even close. The Steelers' level of talent has been at the very least commensurate, if not above that, of the most successful teams over the last 13 years, as Pittsburgh has had the 3rd most Pro Bowlers in the entire league since 2011. Only the Ravens and Chiefs have had more over that time, while the Steelers' 67 Pro Bowlers in the last 13 seasons is more than the 49ers, the Packers, and the New England Patriots. All of this for 3 playoff wins total during that time.
A splattering of incidences, one here, one there, one there.
And yet Tomlin is viewed as one of the best coaches in the NFL. Meanwhile, Mike McCarthy, who is recently under fire for yet another disappointing playoff exit, is 165 and 100 in his regular season coaching career and has a playoff record of 11 and 11. While Tomlin has amassed a 173 and 100 record in his regular season coaching career with the aforementioned 8 and 10 playoff mark. One of these guys is likely about to be fired from a 2nd consecutive job, while the other is waltzing his way into the Hall of Fame. Oh, and speaking of unemployment, Pete Carroll was just let go on the heels of back-to-back winning seasons, 10 winning seasons in his 13-year tenure with Seattle, and a Super Bowl win more recently than Mike Tomlin. Also recently shown the door was Bill Belichick, who has won 6 Super Bowls in the last 20 seasons. Yeah, but it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. They never fire head coaches. They've only had 3 coaches since 1969. Yes, but Chuck Noll amassed a 16-8 record in the playoffs and won 4 Super Bowls. Fervent Tomlin supporters, however, will point to Cowher's tenure and how ownership stuck by him through the struggles. However, Cowher took over a team lacking in the elite pieces he would ultimately leave Tomlin, namely at the most important position of all, quarterback. In 15 seasons as head coach, Bill Cowher had a 149-90-1 record in the regular season, a win percentage of 62%, which is nearly identical to Mike Tomlin. However, Cowher's 12-9 playoff record in 15 years is much better than Tomlin's 8-10 mark in 17 seasons. This is wild. Cowher went to 2 Super Bowls and won 1, same as Tomlin, but Bill Cowher led the Steelers to 8 division crowns compared to Tomlin's 7, and Cowher navigated the Steelers to 6 conference championship games as compared to Tomlin's 3. Cowher was more successful than Tomlin, and that was while deploying a list of quarterbacks that included Neil O'Donnell, Mike Tomczak, Cordell Stewart, Kent Graham, Tommy Maddox, and at the tail end of his tenure, Ben Roethlisberger, a Hall of Fame quarterback which Tomlin had for 12 of the 17 years of his tenure. The Pittsburgh Steelers have gone from perennial Super Bowl contender to a team that hasn't won a single playoff game over the last 7 years, the 8th longest playoff winless drought currently in the NFL. They are losers because their loser ownership continues to employ a loser head coach. And until they stop accepting losing, there will be only more of the same to come in the Steel City. Unless, of course, the delicate genius decides it's in his best interest to finally and mercifully take his mediocre talents to some other NFL franchise.